The producers of Tech AV Learning Aids welcome you to the second program of this series on the subject of oxyacetylene downstream equipment. In this section, we shall look at gas hoses and their associated couplings. Gas hoses, normally known as welding hoses by most operators, are an important yet often neglected component in oxyacetylene equipment. In order to ensure that your welding hoses meet with all safety requirements, always select a brand that complies to the ISO 3821 or your region's equivalent standard. Oxyacetylene hoses are color-coded, blue for oxygen and red for acetylene, and should be clearly marked with the standard to which they comply, as well as the size of the hose. The size of gas hose is given by the nominal inside diameter of the inner extrusion. The most common size used for typical applications is 8 mm, although other sizes such as 5, 6.3 and 10 mm hose are available. The recommended length of hose to use under normal conditions is a minimum of 5 meters and a maximum of 10 meters. Welding hoses, especially those fitted to portable equipment, are usually held together or bundled with clips. Bundling helps to keep the hoses from entangling around obstacles and makes handling them more manageable. Specially manufactured clips are available for the sole purpose of bundling gas hoses. Hose bundling clips should be fitted at intervals of no less than 300 mm along the trailing portion of hoses. There are two important features that hose clips offer. First is that they maintain a gap between the hoses through which small sparks and spatter may pass during operation. The second feature of correct clamps is that the hoses can be separated very quickly in an emergency situation. This feature is necessary to comply with fire regulations. It is for the reasons mentioned that you should never bundle your hoses using makeshift devices such as wire, cable ties, or tape. Never use hose that is manufactured for any other purpose, such as airline hose or water hose. At either end of a gas hose, there has to be some kind of hose end fitting that remains permanently attached. A hose end fitting provides the means of connecting the hose to the gas supply or to the torch. Make sure that the connectors you use are designed specifically for use with oxyacetylene and comply to international or your local standards. Although a variety of couplings is commercially available, there are two basic types, namely threaded couplings and quick connect couplings. A feature common to most hose end fittings is a barbed tailpiece designed to be inserted into the hose. The barbs assist in preventing a fitting from being accidentally pulled out of the hose. In addition, a fitting must be further secured within a hose by attaching a suitable hose clamp. It must be stressed that worm drive clamps are no longer considered suitable for use with welding hoses, because the teeth on these clamps tend to become worn with use and no longer provide a secure connection. An integral part of hose couplings and assemblies are safety devices called flashback arresters or FBAs. In accordance with modern, worldwide safety practices, it has become standard practice to attach flashback arresters, not only at the regulator connections, but to the torch connections as well. All FBAs selected in your system must comply with the international safety standard ISO 5175, or your local equivalent. Flashback arresters are available as regulator-mounted or torch-mounted units. However, these two types are not interchangeable. Flashback arresters are available with threaded connections or quick connect couplers. When installing flashback arresters, always fit them in such a way that the flow direction arrows are pointed toward the torch end. gas will not flow through the device if fitted the wrong way round. There are several options as to how hose assemblies can be configured at either the regulator or torch end. For example, flashback arresters can be permanently attached to the hose and may feature either threaded connectors or they may feature quick connect sockets. Threaded connectors can be attached directly to the appropriate torch or regulator connection. With quick couplers, it may be necessary to attach adapters to the corresponding torch or regulator connections before the flashback arrestor can be attached. Care must be taken during this operation in order to avoid accidental switching of the coupling pins that could result in disastrous consequences. Quick connect adapters are supplied in matched sets. The problem arises, as can easily happen, when the sets get mixed up. If this occurs, you will have to reassemble them in the correct configuration. The coupler pins are identified as follows. On the left is an oxygen pin. Notice the broad collar here. On the right is the acetylene pin. Notice the narrow collar. Now you need to identify the coupler nuts. Always remember that any threaded fitting with a grooved nut is associated with fuel gas, or, in this case, acetylene. Naturally, the oxygen pin connector is assembled with the plain nut. At this time, it is recommended that the adapters be attached and secured to the corresponding torch or regulator connectors where they should remain. Some users prefer that their flashback arresters remain attached to the torch or the regulator, and that the hoses are fitted with the necessary connectors or coupling adapters. Where threaded couplings are used, it is recommended that you use 2 correctly fitting spanners in order to secure the connection properly. How you configure your equipment can be a matter of preference, but will usually be determined by your company's safety policies related to oxyacetylene equipment and processes.